I just hope I don't have any suspicious folders open. Oh, wait a minute, let me double check, okay? Do I have any suspicious folders? Whoa, 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 whoa. Fido, come on, buddy. Come on, buddy. Don't. Whoa, whoa, come on. Alright, I'm ready. Ah, okay. Kładzie się. O, buziak. Alright, new layout, let me see. Okay, nothing sus on the screen. That's good. I'm happy about this result. Hold on. I feel like there's something wrong, but it's okay. Everything's fine for now. Isn't it really? Oh. How is everybody? You feeling okay? Because that's about to change drastically. I feel. We're gonna have a nice session of eating up the horrible news of the world. Are you happy about that? You happy about being able to, you know, get some horrible news? Yeah. Wait, what's the... Okay. Oh, my stomach slightly hurts. I'm okay, I guess. I took the day off from work today, so I stayed home all day. What did you do? Did you eat burger? Did you eat burger? We're gonna talk about Donald J. Trump, okay? Your favorite president. Your only president. All the other presidents were just a figment of your imagination. It all starts and ends with Trump. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. It's like in Xenogears. You know Xenogears? The best game on the market? I mostly slept. I slept a bit, but I have to walk the doggy. Avatar the way of water. It's okay. Don't insult the king. Don't insult the king. Insulted the king is bad. The sovereign. How can you do this? How can you insult the king and not be ashamed of your actions? Baby, baby. Come on. If you hear me make weird noises, don't be alarmed. I'm just talking to a pet. I talk to pets. I usually speak in weird ways. Actually, you're already used to that from me. You're already accustomed to me speaking in bizarre ways, alright? Like you treat this as the norm or something. Isn't it? I wonder, is Dr. John's here? Let's check if there's anybody of our main viewers. What are you saying to the dog? I'm saying just gibberish, basically. I call him a troublemaker in Polish. A little troublemaker. I call him little, but he's actually quite big. He's not little, he's big. As I glance at him, I managed to teach him not to bite anything in this room, which is good, because this is a room full of books. So I consider the fact that I taught him not to bite. At first he actually started. He wanted to bite the books, but I taught him not to do it. So he doesn't now. I did it through positive reinforcement. I told him no, and when he would stop, I'd give him a treat. So now he just doesn't do it. He doesn't try to bite the books anymore. The worst you can do is hit your pet. That's the worst thing you can do ever. To hit your pets. Do not hit your pets. Positive reinforcement is a lot more powerful than hitting. Also, it's a lot better in general. Morally speaking, my moral compass dictates me that it's good. You know? I would be very unfortunate if he bet up a bunch of books. Yeah. Especially since not all of these books are even mine. Some of the books are not even mine. So that would be unfortunate indeed. Hold on. Let's do Piers Morgan Uncensored. Oh my god. We're gonna be watching Piers Morgan today, by the way. That's happening. Hold on. What day of the week is it today? Oh, Thursday. Huh. What? Okay, let's watch some of this. Till more people arrive.
And safety requirements like reporting on crashes that involve his partially automated vehicles. If we continue to let President Trump and Musk unilaterally decide which agencies can function and even exist, our roads and skies are going to be more dangerous and more Americans will die. Or maybe President Trump will make good on his view to get rid of FEMA. Unfortunately, we've seen...
Yeah, FEMA is... Like, it's so ridiculous that Trump wants to get rid of FEMA. It's in my opinion, it's a very important institution. Like, if it doesn't work perfectly, then fix it. Don't get rid of it. Getting rid of FEMA is I don't even know what to say. Oh, I should put this on screen. My dog wouldn't stop biting people, and I had to let him go. He had a history of biting when I got him, though. I thought I could reform him. You could have tried using a behaviorist. My dog is just afraid of people, by the way. My dog just barks at people. He's terrified of them. I just took him in. He's still fairly young. Hold on, I have to show the browser. My comments may have finally appeared under your short. Yeah, I liked your comments. After much experimentation. Context for black screen? There is no context. I just didn't put it on screen yet. There's a Senate hearing live about Dodge and US aid. And people are understandably worried about what's going on.
Here as well.
Oh, my dog pays a lot of attention to me, actually. My dog will not go anywhere without me. I think he treats me as his mom. He will follow me around. He will, when I take him to for a walk, he always is near me. When I let him run loose in the garden, he will not run anywhere unless I go with him. When I call him, he listens to me. He always runs to me when I call him. It's just, and he's afraid of everybody. So he sort of chose me as the person that's he trusts, and he barks at everybody else. He likes and listens to me, but barks at everybody else and is afraid. He doesn't bark, he doesn't throw himself at people. And when we're outside and he's afraid, he will run and almost hide behind me. So that's like a thing, you know? Oh no, it's Thursday already in Poland. Mine was the same, but he didn't pay attention to what I was trying to tell him to do. Oh yeah, and he doesn't bite people. He just barks at them. He doesn't bite them. He's afraid. He's just scared. Actually, he only bites me when he gets playful. I'm actually the only person that he bites when he gets playful. Alright, let's see.
Down on. I've talked for years about Voice of America and the messaging they put out. It is literally government-paid journalists that are supposed to tell the government story of America internationally. What they're actually doing often is talking about murders in America and riots in America and how Trump is ruining Christianity in America, and on and on and on have been the negative stories about America that
I've never ever heard a story about Trump ruining Christianity in America, so I guess those journalists are doing a pretty poor job, because this is the first that I'm hearing of Trump ruining Christianity in America, and frankly, I don't care. Like, I don't care about that. That's not really like what? Like, come on. Like, of all the things that you can criticize Trump for, ruining Christianity in America is definitely not even in the first 10 on my list. So, it's pretty funny. It's pretty ridiculous.
Narratives abroad actually coming back and being a form of government propaganda here at home. Because that message, unlike maybe in the 1950s when we were trying to subvert communism in Greece, that message then comes back here. And so the content of that message, like you're talking about, is so critical that it is in fact something that is supportive of our interests and accurate, and something that is not going to undermine support for the United States here at home even.
Right. Schellenberger, you want to add anything to that?
Well, only that, I mean, of course, everybody should be free to speak their mind, but I think if we're going to have taxpayers, funding this activity, they should be talking about how special this country is. I mean, that's why so many people have been trying to come here. So the level of anti-Americanism and globalism that we've seen promoted by these organizations, I think it's horrendous. So I share your views.
When the global media outlet for the United States sounds a lot like Russia Today's messaging globally, we have a problem on it, and that's our problem. They spend a lot of time saying we're going to prove that
I was muted. How about we just, because they're talking about bashing, etc., anti-Americanism. How about we just, how about we're just honest about what's going on? How about we just report things as they are? Don't bash overly, don't praise overly, just talk about things as they are. How about that? Okay?
From our foreign aid of the $2 billion, and they couldn't identify the rest, exactly who were the recipients of that aid. Have you been
You
able to
should not
track
be
at all
talking
aid
about how
that's gone
special America
directly
is. You
to the
should just be talking
Taliban
about it
since we
as it
have
is.
left Afghanistan?
Just a
I
country.
have not, sir, but what I will point out, there's been a lot of complaints about the Inspector
This is
General
stupid.
at USAID being let go. What was the Inspector General doing exactly? I mean, we've seen all the waste, fraud, and abuse that you've documented. So what's the point of having an Inspector General if they're not going to inspect?
Right. I do hope that the president actually nominates a new inspector general quickly. That is an important role for Congress to be able to have some insight into different agencies, and it's important to have that role. But I would agree, your job is to inspect and to be able to report back. And if you're not identifying this waste, why are you there? I yield back.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Ridiculous.
I am disappointed that we are not having a serious hearing on how to improve USAID. There's room for improvement in every agency, as there is in almost anything that we do. But this hearing is simply designed to give cover for President Trump's unlawful dismantling of a congressionally established agency against the law
I agree.
and against the interests of this country,
I
And-
agree
against the interests
with the American
of
people.
many in this country, including American farmers who
Oh,
benefit from it. The
the Ukraine
Inspector General of the U.S. Agency for International Development, Paul Martin, has submitted a report. I ask that it be made part of the record if there's no objection. And in that report was critical of the so-called pause in foreign assistance funding,
in USA.
saying that it has
90 days.
delayed $489 million of food assistance at ports, in transit, and in warehouses. I'm quoting,
Yeah.
at the risk of spoilage, unanticipated storage needs, and diversion. That's waste in government.
Yep.
And it's not just a little bit of
International
waste,
waste.
it's humongous waste, $489
And also,
million
it will cause people to
in
die of
those
starvation.
fees alone.
Just so you know.
He says the pause in funding and reductions in staff, including over 90% of BHA's workforce furloughed or placed on administrative leave, has undermined two key oversight mechanisms to assure accountability over humanitarian assistance funding, partner vetting, and third-party monitoring. I don't have time to go into the details, but that is also waste.
Yeah.
And
It is.
when we talk about the other effects of this pause, let's look at the effect on farmers
I've talked
American
about this
farmers
yesterday as well. How it
who grow
doesn't
the
allow
food that
Ukrainian NGOs
USAID
to
distributes. American farmers
do investigation
in
into Russian war crimes.
2022 alone, USAID helped to distribute nearly 4 billion pounds of American-grown food to 58 million people around the globe. I know that some of my colleagues are reluctant to defend foreign humanitarian aid. It doesn't always poll well. It's humanitarian assistance. I think Americans are better than trashing the idealistic goals that have motivated our nation over the years, but putting aside the humanitarian instincts behind some of USAID, here's
Just
what
call it
American
aid,
farmers
to be
have
honest.
said in reaction to these actions. President of the Iowa Farmers Union said, quote, USAID is important for farmers. It's unfortunate that we would drop those relationships that we have built over time, end quote. The Ohio Farmer Union president said, quote, USAID plays a crucial role, not only providing food aid to millions around the world, but also directly purchasing grains from Ohio farmers. Ohio farmers are more than capable of rising to the challenge of feeding the world but they need stability to do so. In shuttering USAID, President Trump is pulling billions of dollars away from American farmers without apparently a second thought. That's a lot of harm. That's a lot of waste and a lot of
He
abuse.
doesn't care about harm, though.
To people
That's
who
the problem.
are
He doesn't care about harm.
the backbone
He cares
of
about
food production.
cutting costs
this nation.
at the cost of lives. He doesn't
Already,
care about harm.
a lot of their labor, investment, produce, going to waste as a result of the Musk power grab, slash and trash agencies in the name of eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse, but in fact creating it and profiting from it. Elon Musk is giving America the middle finger in seizing power, engaging in the biggest heist of information in America's history,
Strong words.
delving into agencies and destroying them when his own corporations profit from contracts with them and controlling contracts in the future that will benefit his corporation.
It's getting a long time
That's
to
waste and
speak,
fraud,
but
Mr.
it's
Chairman.
true what he's saying.
Thank you.
I'm not disagreeing.
The accusation or criticism has been made that this is an unserious hearing full of conspiracy theorists. Well, you know, the Democrats were asked to participate like they always are, the same way we were when we were in the minority. They could have brought a witness. They chose not to even bring a witness. I can't conjecture as to why, but maybe it's because it's so embarrassing, the stuff that USAID is spending their money on. Who could possibly be against ending $2 million for sex change surgeries in Guatemala? I mean, who wants to defend that? I haven't heard anybody yet defend the waste and malfeasance that's going over there. $3 million for girl-centric
transphobia.
climate change. Maybe there's not a witness here. Maybe it's not serious. But I don't hear anybody explaining why we should continue to do that. Now, there is a legal question. There is a legal question. If there's
Cultural
$40
war
billion in
nonsense, of course.
USAID,
Pivoting
and they
to
don't
cultural
spend
war
it at all,
nonsense.
and it just sits there, can the president impound it?
How typical.
This is a real question, and it may come to that. But I don't think any court is going to find that the executive branch
Who cares
cannot
about people
pause and
starving?
audit
Who cares
spending.
about famine? Who
I mean,
cares about all these
To
things? Cultural war
crassly
nonsense.
say, and just to jump this, it's illegal, it's unlawful, it's a tragedy, it's constitutional chaos. Well, auditing spending is what government should do. It's the traditional oversight that hasn't been done in a generation. That's why we're finding this stuff. It's been creeping up for a generation. $4.8 million for social media influencers in Ukraine. I mean, if people want to defend that, step forward and defend it. We are finding waste and malfeasance. You also have to realize that when you
What
have
social media influencers? What social media influencers in Ukraine received $4 million? Who? Like, I know quite a few people that go to Ukraine and report, and none of them received any of that money.
a social agenda.
Who are these
and your social
influencers?
agenda is, you know, LGBT. Well, when you take that to a conservative country that has religious problems with that, and you want to foist it on them and fly flags, what ends up happening is that doesn't increase diplomacy, that actually goes against diplomacy. I don't care what people's views are on any of these subjects. You can have any view on LGBT, but it shouldn't be part of foreign policy to force this on everybody around the world. It just isn't part of government and should never be part of government.
Yeah, don't force people having rights.
But we're only finding this out because we have a
I hate this.
president
This is
with the
basically
courage,
a
including
lighter
the advice
version
Elon
of
Musk, including the advice of
a sovereign
Alliance,
country should
who
be
have been
able to
saying
murder
for
its
years, we need to
citizens
look
from
at
before
USAID
World War
and
II.
make sure
Yeah,
that
hot
they
take
aren't
maybe,
committing
but
fraud.
that is
Look, this
literally it.
morning, the
A sovereign
CFO of
country should
FEMA
just be
was
able to
fired
discriminate
because she's
against
spending $54
its
million
citizens,
on luxury
and
hotels
it's nobody else's
for
business
illegal
because
aliens.
it's the business
My
of a
goodness, there's a
country
lot
who
of
they want to
Americans
discriminate
struggling to find work.
against and
Lincoln
dehumanize,
Riley's
which is
killer.
a ridiculous
We flew him
position.
and put him up in a luxury
I
hotel in
reject
New
that
York.
position
He was there
in
for a few months.
today's
We
world,
spent all
okay?
of the money on his meals,
Like,
and then we
sovereignty
flew
is
him
not
to Atlanta.
absolute.
And
The
then he
power
drifted
over
over
the
to Athens, and
citizenry
then he
of a
killed Lincoln
country is
Riley.
not
Most
an
Americans
absolute
think
right
that
of a
that's crazy
state.
and we shouldn't be doing it. But
Crazy,
we are
I
only finding
know.
it out because for once we have a president with the courage to say no, to go over there and put a padlock on the door and take the name down. But ultimately, there
Crazy.
will be a legal question. Can he impound it, or will it have to come back to Congress? I actually frankly think the better way is spend about $30 billion and send $10 billion back, and we do a rescission. There is a method for doing that, and I hope that is what is done. But even on the impoundment question, there are questions exactly, and I don't think it's ever made it all the way to the Supreme Court. There is court precedent on it, but we haven't gotten to that. A pause in funding is an impoundment. A pause in funding to do an audit is just good government, frankly. The question I have for the panel is this, though.
Mr. Chairman, may I just
Sure.
inquire?
Sure.
Because the chairman mentioned that we don't have a minority witness. I would suggest, and speaking out of turn here, because the ranking member isn't here and I don't purport to speak for him.
We're docking your time for next week. I'm just kidding.
But I would respectfully suggest that we have Paul Martin, who was fired as Inspector General, come before us.
We didn't deny any witnesses. Your side did not put forward a witness. We did not deny any witnesses. You didn't put forward a witness. So, but I just think it's disingenuous to,
Well,
to
rather
sit
than
there and it is a
standing-
personal attack on me to call this unserious and a conspiracy, a bunch of conspiracy. It's an attack on our witnesses as well. That is a pejorative, and that's name calling.
Oh,
All
no,
right?
name
You're welcome
calling.
to object
Oh,
to things they say and have
no.
facts to counter
Aw.
them. But to call this an unserious hearing of conspiracy
I
theory.
never used that term, Mr. Chairman.
Well, you said it wasn't serious. You said the hearing wasn't serious.
I
And the thing is, y'all chose not to participate in it, so that's on you.
Oh, my God.
I'll
Maybe
reclaim
we can have a second hearing because this is such an
We
important
we could have a
topic.
dozen on this. There's so much to talk about. But anyway,
Ridiculous.
I think we ought to be, I'm not criticizing your ranking member for being unserious or a conspiracy theory. He has his
mean-
opinions. We make our arguments both sides. But if we call names and say, oh, well, your ideas are conspiracy theory, that's a pejorative, and that doesn't get us anywhere.
It's not
frankly.
name calling. It's not a
And,
pejorative.
because
If there's
it's
no
also
evidence,
dangerous in
if
the
there's,
sense that
if it's a
many people who
conspiracy,
then
it's a
say, "Oh,
conspiracy. It's
conspiracy
just a
theory,
statement
the
of
government
fact.
should
It's not a
suppress that."
pejorative or an insult.
This is what went on. We had 23
silly.
scientists come forward in Lancet and say that the possibility that the virus came from a lab in Wuhan was a conspiracy theory. And then government promoted back to Twitter and others and met with them on a weekly basis trying to suppress. Facebook for a year and a half said that ideas like mine, that it could have come from the lab, were to
my
be
God.
suppressed. Michael Schellenberger, why don't you, if you wouldn't mind responding to how the government was involved with trying to suppress speech that you found out through Twitter files?
Well, sure. And also, I would think whenever you hear somebody accuse somebody of a conspiracy theory, I think you should consider that they are themselves spreading disinformation. In other words, we know that the proximal origins paper that you're describing there, we know from their internal discussions that those scientists were pursuing the lab leak theory. We saw it in their Slack messages. And then they got a phone call. They talked from the higher ups, and then they ended up changing their whole hypothesis over a weekend. So we've seen repeatedly that term used to dismiss very serious evidence of misconduct and of actual conspiracies. We've seen the rise of an entire censorship industrial complex. There's no
I'm
there's no
sorry.
theorizing.
Saying
It's
that
just the
something
facts
happened
of
is
the
not evidence.
censorship industrial
What do
complex
you
that was
mean
created by the Department of Homeland
of strong
Security,
evidence?
starting in 2021.
Like, you cannot-
Really started before
you
that in
cannot treat
2020,
opinion
all the
as
way culminating
evidence.
to the Disinformation Governance Board, which was so Orwellian that even Democrats had to
Orwellian.
back away from it.
Senator Hassan?
What a timeline we're living in when an
Thanks,
opinion
Mr.
becomes
Chair.
evidence
I want to thank you and
and not
the
a
ranking member.
conspiracy.
For years, I have worked on a bipartisan basis to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse within the federal government, including on bills with you, Mr. Chair. These efforts are critical to ensure that taxpayer dollars are being spent efficiently. If this committee and President Trump, though, actually wanted to reduce waste and fraud, they would work together to support and bolster inspectors general. Inspectors general are indispensable watchdogs who identify multi-million-dollar overpayments to big corporations, exactly what Elon Musk claims he wants to root out. To use just the Inspector General of the Department of Health and Human Services as an example, last year the HHS Inspector General exposed $35 million in improper Medicare payments after equipment companies charged the government for thousands of catheters for patients who didn't need them. Additionally, last year, 2 pharmacy owners went to jail after the HHS Inspector General helped uncover that they had fraudulently submitted at least $20 million in false Medicare claims for cancer medication. All told, the HHS Inspector General identified $7 billion last year in waste, fraud, and abuse within the department. But did President Trump and Elon Musk support and empower inspectors general? No, they did not. Instead, just days into his administration, President Trump illegally fired at least 17 inspectors general in a move to silence those who would provide accountability and oversight over his administration.
He doesn't want
And
accountability.
since their firing, we are growing to get a better picture of why they were fired. Just yesterday, we found out that the State Department is planning to buy $400 million in armored vehicles from Elon Musk's Tesla company. Elon Musk spent $250 million to get President Trump elected, and now President Trump is returning the favor. After clearing out the watchdogs, the president decided to unleash chaos and confusion on Granite Staters and Americans through an illegal order to cut off nearly all federal grants. These are grants that fire departments count on to upgrade their equipment, police departments use to hire officers to protect our streets, and shelters need to provide homeless veterans a place to sleep. While federal courts have temporarily halted the president's funding cutoff, I continue to hear from organizations that are unable to access the federal funding that they have been awarded, that we appropriated, that is law. This is the real cost of the illegal move by President Trump to cut off funding. Granite Staters left in the lurch, not knowing how much longer their community health center will remain open, or if their child care facility will be able to stay open and they'll be able to go to work.
Yeah, but think how
The
much
American
money
people
is
want
saved.
relief from high
Think
costs,
of the savings.
and they want their government to work. But as
cares if people
inflation and
suffer?
egg
Think
prices
of the
soar,
savings.
the president illegally fired the people, the very people, who root out waste and fraud and have a track record of doing it. And then he illegally took funding away from law enforcement and community groups. I urge the president to reverse course and for this committee to work together to find common sense ways to address the challenges that
President will not
Americans are
reverse
facing
course.
today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I can already tell you the
Senator
president will
Scott.
not. He will.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a
intensify
great hearing. As you know, the federal government is spending money like
Savings
it's going
to
out of
tax-
style.
for
Last year, it
tax breaks
spent
for
nearly $7
billionaires. I
trillion.
mean, Think of the billionaires for once,
revenues
not
were
just about
5.2
yourself,
trillion.
okay?
Nobody in this country can do that. Nobody can do it in their personal life. Businesses can't do it, only the federal government. We're being forced to borrow another $1.9 trillion to make up for it.
Don't
It's
be
one of the
so
reasons that
selfish.
we now
Think
have
about the
over
billionaires.
$36 trillion worth of debt, and we're heading quickly to 37. Over the last 4 years, while the population has grown 2%, the federal government has increased spending by 53%. They've added $8 trillion to national debt in 4 years.
What were the spending
This
on?
is not sustainable. If nothing changes, our federal government is on track to add $1 trillion to the federal debt every 180 days. The cost of this debt is another massive problem. Right now, more than $1 trillion of money that hardworking Americans pay in taxes each year is just going to pay the interest on their federal debt. That's a waste. So I'm very appreciative of what President Trump's doing and what DOJ is doing to try to find all this waste. They're going agency by
the waste
agency,
of
one
feeding
by one,
the hungry
find
and
out
the
how
waste
every
of
single dollar is
sheltering
spent
the
and making sure
veterans,
it's spent
the
in the
waste
best interest
of
of the American public.
discovering Russian war crimes in Ukraine.
Unfortunately,
what a
many
waste.
Democrats among this
What a
committee
waste.
have
What a
expressed
waste.
outrage.
What a
But the outrage
waste.
is better suited for some of the absurd, wasteful spending they've already uncovered. Let's look at USAID. They provided full funding for al-Qaeda terrorist Anwar al-Awlaki to attend college in Colorado. They gave $310 million to start a Palestinian cement factory, which is used to help Hamas build terror tunnels into Gaza. How can you be this stupid? Another $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and to business communities.
Oh, no.
How does that help an American? $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia. How does that help America? $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam. How does that help America? A multi-year study from the Middle East Forum uncovered.
This is so
$164
stupid.
million
You can ask this about
of
any
approved
type
grants
of
to
foreign aid.
organizations
How does that
and
help Americans?
$22
That's
million
that's
going
this
to
is
groups, aligned with
I'm sorry,
Muslim
I almost
terrorists.
said it.
How does that help Americans? and billions more.
I almost said the word. This is just so bafflingly.
Partners. The families I represent would agree that's not how they want their tax dollars spent. They'd
Wow.
rather have their tax dollars
This
spent
is
putting Americans
painful.
first
This is
or advancing
painful,
our
actually.
interests abroad. Not funding terrorism against us or allies, or funding some fringe globalist agenda. So I'm
What the
very
hell is a
appreciative of what
fringe
President Trump
globalist
has done.
agenda?
I appreciate what Doge is doing, and I appreciate that Marco Rubio, our ex-colleague, is doing running the state.
does foreign aid
So, Mr. Schellenberg,
average
Doge also discovered that the Biden administration spent millions of dollars on subscriptions to left-leaning media outlets like Politico.
Wow.
The Biden administration censored certain media and
Maybe
Americans
you should
online
subscribe
that
to
didn't
Politico.
favor
Maybe
the
you'd learn
administration's
something.
narrative. And now we see that their administration was essentially financing media outlets to favor them. How is this not a conflict of interest, and what do you think of this?
Yeah, I agree. It's a huge conflict of interest, and it's really just the tip of the iceberg. I mean,
Oh
what
my
we
God.
uncovered in our reporting is that the USAID has basically been bankrolling an organization called the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, which has been in the process over the last decade and a half of really taking over so-called independent investigative journalism around the world, usually relying on strategic leaks by the intelligence community, but with an aim to really undermine the independence of investigative journalism.
Oh.
When we started investigating these guys, they threatened to sue us right away. They have a $9 million fund just to sue people. It's called Reporters Shield, but it's an offensive weapon that they use to basically shut down any inquiry into what they're doing. And we've even seen now, we've now traced
What
that
sort of
USAID
inquiry?
money to investigations that were essential to the 2019 impeachment of President Donald Trump, and then also to the Russiagate hoax, particularly spreading misinformation and malinformation about Trump's alleged ties to the Russians. Of course, one of the greatest conspiracy theory of the recent era, which alleged that because President Trump banked with Deutsche Bank, and that there were Russians, oligarchs who also banked with Deutsche Bank, that there had to be some sort of a conspiracy. So that's just the tip of the iceberg, sir. It's really a deep corruption of so-called mainstream independent media.
Based on your investigation, you also talk about how USAID transfers funds between projects to make it hard for anybody to sort of track the funds. Can you elaborate?
Well, sure. And so, part of what happened is that one of the media organizations in Germany, one of their big television stations, NDR, really turned the tables on OCCRP and began an investigation. USAID admitted on camera that they had routed money from the State Department's Law Enforcement Bureau through USAID just for optics reasons, admitting on camera that they did that because they knew that it would look bad for an investigative journalism organization to be supported by effectively the cops, by law enforcement. That's not good journalism practice. That violates basically every code of ethics by every journalism organization in the world. They also acknowledged that USAID has to agree to OCCRP's work plan and that they have to agree to their key staff. And this was all literally recorded on video, USAID officials saying this. Then afterwards, OCCRP denied it. They just said that that wasn't true. It just asserted that it was false. So, I mean, really what you're looking at with OCCRP and also Internews is that these are really vectors of disinformation. They spread disinformation and then demand censorship on the basis of it. That's what they did with the COVID lab leak, as the chairman was mentioning. First, they spread the disinformation that it was a conspiracy theory that it could have come from a lab, when, of course, their own scientists suspected that's what it was. And then they demanded censorship on the basis of it. Same thing happened with Hunter Biden, and we see that playbook.
Okay,
I think,
suspicion does not mean fact. You can say there's a suspicion, but you cannot treat that as fact, therefore. There's a difference between suspicion and something being true. Do I really have to explain that?
The basis for demanding censorship.
God,
In 2022, the Biden administration donated $344 million to United Nations Relief and Work Agency for Palestinian refugees, and continued to donate hundreds of millions of dollars throughout 2023 and during the Israeli-Hamas war. We now know Hamas terrorists were stealing food and supplies intended for humanitarian purposes. So was the U.S. government funding a terrorist organization?
You know, it sure looks like that, and I haven't
Oh
investigated that particular case. But I think one of the big lessons from all this, we may remember, those of us that are old enough to remember what we were learning after 9/11 is that that was a process of blowback. We had been arming the Mujahideen, and we had been in alliance with the folks that actually then their networks then ended up creating the 9/11 attacks. So I think what we're seeing here starting to blow back on us, where we see the disinformation and censorship being weaponized against the American people, because we have a USAID complex, USAID complex, that's been completely unaccountable. Obviously, the Inspector General wasn't doing his job right, and therefore I think merits this very serious audit. And I agree with the chairman. If there's good stuff that they've been doing, and I don't doubt that there has been, then it should make the case for it and be added in back later, rather than sort of that we all assume that everything's fine.
All right. Thank you, Chairman.
Senator Kim.
Thank you, Chairman, for pulling this together. And I just want to just reflect on this a little bit, because, you know, there is a room and there is a way for us to have a debate about the effectiveness and the efficiency of foreign aid.
United States
what
is
is happening
cooked.
right now in
The
our
United
nation,
States is
this is
just
not the right way
screwed.
to go about it. You know, we talk about, I hear about a pause here, but this is not a pause. We're seeing a gutting of
things
the
are not
staff
good.
down to approximately
Just
600.
tell you that, okay?
If it is a
Things
pause
are bad.
to look and reflect and see what is not working, what shouldn't be done, then let's pause on the gutting of the staff. Let's pause on the transfer of USAID under the State Department. So I just wanted to show that this is not a pause. This is not a review. This is already a reorganization, already a dismantling of USAID as it is. And I say that as someone who, a little over 20 years ago, stepped into the Ronald Reagan building for the very first day in public service. I served at the USAID. I don't know who else in this room has.
Okay.
But I just tell you that I was proud to be able to serve at USAID and serve this country. And I worked at USAID, I worked at the Pentagon, I worked at the State Department. I've been a part of the 3 Ds of our foreign policy, of defense, diplomacy, and development, and seen that
Trump
in
doesn't
action.
care about foreign policy much.
So
He
I
cares
disagree
about,
the idea that the type of power, the type of
projecting
influence that we're
power,
trying to
quote
move forward
unquote.
at USAID doesn't matter, that it's only about material military power. You know, we've seen how, for instance, when it was our help with the response to the earthquake in Turkey, or the flooding in Pakistan, how that was something that was able to open up diplomatic channels to be able to move forward, build on the relationships.
doesn't care
It was
about
the
soft power.
work that we were doing
He
through
does not.
USAID
He
that was
honestly
able to
doesn't.
get some of our diplomatic efforts, and including our military efforts, in a better position. And I said that as someone who walked into the Reagan building. There's a reason why USAID
wants
is
to
in the
bulldoze his
Ronald
way
Reagan building.
into
It's because
things.
Ronald Reagan
No
himself
subtle
was a strong
diplomacy needed.
supporter of USAID and foreign assistance. He said, quote, "The ultimate importance to the United States of our security and development assistance programs cannot be exaggerated." He said, "Our national interests are inextricably tied to the security and development of our friends and allies." And when it came to people criticizing USAID, he said, quote, "You know the excuses. We can't afford foreign aid anymore, or we're wasting money pouring it into these poor countries, or we can't buy friends. Other countries just take the money and dislike us for giving it." A lot of things that we heard here today. And Ronald Reagan concludes saying, well, all of these excuses are just that, excuses, and they're dead wrong. I heard today people talking about USAID as if it's charity. One person that said, quote, "Foreign aid is not charity. We must make sure it is well spent, but it is less than 1% of the budget and
Right.
critical to our national security." The person who said that is Secretary of State Marco Rubio when he was with us in the Senate. He also went on to
Whoops.
say that he
Very
urged
good.
President
Good.
Biden move forward
Good.
and prioritize USAID
Defend
funding because he said,
USAID.
quote, "counter the Chinese Communist Party's expanding global influence."
Soft
And
power
our current
again.
Secretary of State also said, quote, "We don't have to give foreign aid. We do so because it furthers our national interests. That's why we give foreign aid." So I
true.
just wanted to be able to frame that. And when I worked at USAID, I actually worked at USAID under the Bush administration. I worked under a Republican president. I worked under a administrator there who was appointed by a Republican president, Andrew Natsios, who was just recently asked, could you specifically respond to what Elon Musk's functionaries at the Department of Government Efficiency have done in terms of actually shutting down USAID? And Andrew Natsios said, quote, "It's illegal and it's outrageous. They have no right to abolish an agency,
that's why we
a
were having a
statutory
constitutional
agency in the
crisis.
federal government." So I just wanted to raise this because what we're talking about here is efforts that are trying to end a long-standing bipartisan understanding about our strength as a global leader.
Yep.
And what we are also seeing, and this is something that just feels so personal, is just the demonization of public servants. We can have a debate about foreign aid, but we can do it without demonizing the people who have sworn an oath to this country. Many of them right now working in difficult and dangerous places. Some of them don't know how they're going to get back home right now because of how quickly all of this had been shut off. And what it really just shakes around the world when I hear from leaders in other countries is they say, what is the value of the American handshake right now? And I think that has been
not much
detrimentally affected
not
and
much.
really
The trust in the
negatively
United
affected
States
over the
has
course
been
of the last
damaged
couple weeks.
greatly.
And with that, I'll yield back.
Oh, believe
Thank
me
you.
that.
It's been bandied about that certain things are illegal, and I think it's worth a little bit of discussion over that. You know, inspector generals have been let go, people at the USAID have been let go, and it's been alleged that this is illegal. It's actually a little more complicated than that. This goes all the way back to Andrew Johnson and his fight with Congress. There was a tenure of office act that was passed, and it said that he couldn't even fire members of his cabinet. And they were in the same party. The Republicans controlled Congress, and Johnson at the time, I guess, had become a Republican, being Lincoln's vice president. But it was finally repealed, but there was a big dispute over the way he could even hire members of his cabinet. Later in 1926, in Myers versus the U.S., the court rules that you really can't restrict the president's right to hire and fire their cabinet. Now, it's gone beyond that. In 2020 or 2021, the CFPB that was referred to earlier, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Democrats created this, and they didn't want it ever to go away. The funding was supposed to go on forever, and the person in charge of it was not to be fired. Well, the court ruled that you can't do that. You can't set up an executive agency under the auspices of the president and say you can't fire them. So then there's a question with the inspector generals, and the Trump administration is challenging it. And I think we have to go with what the court decides, but there is legislation saying you can't fire them. He asserts that under the court precedents that he can. And so this is an argument. That's what constitutional law and separation of powers is about. So we'll find out whether it's legal or illegal, but at this point it's an allegation that it's illegal. With regard to the waste and abuse and the outrageous things that we're seeing, sure, it draws the attention. It should draw the attention. But there is also the question of where the money comes from. What we bring in tax revenue is equal to about 4 programs. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and food stamps would soak up all of the revenue. There's nothing left. So when we vote on a budget as Congress for military and non-military, what's called discretionary spending, which is 1/3 of all spending, it's all borrowed. Nearly $2 trillion, what we vote on, it's all borrowed. So this gets to the point that I'll ask both of you on foreign aid. If it's about $40 billion, do you think we could just get better people over there and they won't do the bad projects? Or do you think maybe they need a smaller number in order to have an incentive to cut out the waste? We'll start with Mr. Ruger, Dr. Ruger.
Okay, who
Yeah, I think
decides
you're
which
exactly
projects
right,
are bad and which
There's
projects
very
are good?
little
Are you gonna
incentive,
judge that on the
for
basis of
agencies
wokeness or something?
to get lean
Woke bad?
when the money keeps coming through the door. In fact, even if you increase the aid, or the support
This is
rather,
stupid.
then why would they change? I think this is the
Stupid,
case
stupid.
in almost every government
Silly
agency
business.
out there, is that putting it on a diet means that it will actually work better. When when the budgets are bloated, then you
Oh,
see
Boogie.
some of these less
We're listening to
prioritized
a
or less
hearing
important
about
projects
US
are not
AID.
scrapped or subject to the same type of
Gavin,
analysis
AID.
in terms of their benefits relative to their costs that we would like to see.
Okay.
One thing I would like to say also is that given the potential for USAID and the State Department to pursue different and potentially contradictory goals, it's also good governance to actually try to find a different architecture that can make sure that the money that is spent is actually doing so for a common purpose and achieving a common end, as opposed to being potentially contradictory here. And that's one of the challenges.
I think we've heard enough. Like, the U.S. is doing right now its best to flush its soft power down the toilet. I'm not sure I'm a big fan. I guess aid is bad because what does it do for the average American? Some programs are bad. We don't know what the criteria will be for which programs are supposed to be good and which programs are supposed to be bad. But judging on the examples of bad programs that have been given here, it's woke so bad, diversity and inclusion programs in Colombia. Oh no, what wasted potential, what wasted monies. What does that do for American people? Judged based on which projects cannot be filibustered by the weirdest 40 senators. True. That is true. But what were you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Let's go to the actual topic of today, of tonight, or of whatever you want to say. The topic is President Volodymyr Zelensky being a dictator. Yeah, that's right. I've already told you yesterday how Donald Trump claimed that Zelensky only has 4% approval rating, which is completely not true. Actually, his approval rating has gone up. It's very recently has been 52%, give or take, of trust among the citizens. It went up to 57, and because of Trump's behavior, it might just go up again. It might go back to the 60s, to the 70s, who knows? When Trump is so aggressively attacking the president, there is a chance that the Ukrainian people will just stand behind him. Because in my opinion, as a wartime president, he's doing a pretty good job, all things considered, considering all the pressure that is on him. And I honestly don't know how I would appraise him, how I would judge him as a peacetime president. But the reality of the situation is that we don't have peace. The reality of the situation is that the Constitution itself says, well, we'll get into that. I'm just talking about the 4% approval thing. But yeah, he is doing a pretty good job as a wartime president. He has his faults, he has his missteps, but you cannot say that he is a completely terrible president that has 4% approval rating among the citizens. Wait, I think I had a graphic on that actually. Is this it? No, that's the tweet. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. Dynamics of trust in President V. Zelensky during 2019-2024. To what extent do you trust or distrust Volodymyr Zelensky? At first, 80%, 37, 90, 77, 64, 59, 59, 52, and now it apparently went to, yeah, he said it. Yeah, that's right. He said that Ukraine has started the war. Apparently now it jumped back to 57, and we might even see it go more. So it feels like Trump is, at least among the Ukrainian people, doing a PR job. Let's see. We're gonna start with this, because this is interesting. This is horrifyingly interesting. Think of it. A modestly successful comedian, Volodymyr Zelensky, talked to the United States of America into spending $350 billion. And again, America did not spend $350 billion. That is a complete fabrication. I think the United States has spent something like 100 and I don't have the exact numbers in my head, but trust me when I say it has not spent $350 billion on Ukraine. Not even close. And the much smaller amount that the United States has contributed to aid for Ukraine has went back to the American weapons industry. So it's, things are not as Trump presents them here. To go into a war, yes, that's right, because the way he is presenting it, it's as if Ukraine was a, sorry. Trump is presenting Ukraine as if it was Germany, as if it was almost Prussia or Germany that wants to fear, like warmonger, prepare itself for war. Okay, United States, give us $350 billion so that we can go to war. That's right. We're demanding money from the US so that we can start a war. This is how it's written. Zelensky talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war. How does that sound like? It sounds like he asked for money to be able to start a war, which is a ridiculous way to describe what happened in 2022. That's a very unique way to describe Ukraine being invaded by Russia. It's almost okay. Like, I know people don't like when this is done by God, who was president of Poland in 1939? Let me see. Actually, Ignacy Mościcki. Yeah. Let me see. 39. Yeah, let's say Mościcki. Okay, whatever. Let's say Mościcki. Well, and let's think of it. A modestly successful whatever Ignacy Mościcki talked to the United States of America into spending $300 billion to go into a war with Germany. Imagine if anybody what are you saying? What do you mean, Vladimir? What do you mean senile? Are you calling me senile? Hold on. This tweet is very AM coded. Like, this is just crazy. Imagine if people try to blame Poland for its invasion in 1939. Because I'm gonna be honest, trying to blame Ukraine for it being invaded in 2022 is basically the same as blaming Poland for being invaded in 1939. Also, Vladimir, I like you to explain. What do you mean senile content from Lucy Burns TV? Explain yourself. All right. Boom. I'm putting my glass down. I'm petting my dog. I'm sorry, this is just the very beginning just strikes me as so ludicrous that it's beyond parody. And this is the President of the United States saying this completely seriously, completely without any. It would be very weird to write this even as a joke, but to write this seriously, it's. So let's just get on with it. So to go into war, a war that couldn't be won, which is another lie. This war very much could have been won. It still could be won if aid if proper aid would be given by the United States. If the United States would contribute more than 0.2% of its GDP or something into the aid, then maybe this war could have and would have been won, okay? Let's not throw silly, ridiculous, untrue statements into the air. Well, it's too late. He already did, but that never had to start. Well, I'm sorry, who started the war again? Like, I'm sorry, unlike as much as you'd like to write it into being true, Ukraine did not go into war. Ukraine was invaded in 2022. That is the historical record of what happened. Ukraine did not choose to go to war. So, never had to start. But a war that he, without the US and Trump, will never be able to settle, because Trump has to write about himself in the third person. Yeah, I know, but I'm talking about the full-scale invasion. I'm not even talking about the war in Donbass. That was, yes, I know. I realize that. When I say in 2022, I mean the full-scale invasion, not the smaller one, which Trump did nothing to end, by the way, as it was raging on during his first term. So that's also a thing that always should be noted, always should be pointed out. Trump, the artist, the master of the deal, did absolutely nothing to end the conflict in Donbass. So, yeah. Never able to. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe. Completely not true. We have a whole article about it that we probably will read today. Like, in actuality, when it comes to total aid, not just military aid, Europe has overtaken the United States. That is the reality of the situation. The entirety of the European Union has spent more on aid overall than the United States. So saying that the United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe is simply not true, and we will dive into that today. And Europe's money is guaranteed, while the United States will get nothing back. What does that mean? Europe's money is guaranteed, while the United States will get nothing back. It's aid. Europe is also giving money in aid, not expecting anything back. So I don't even know what that means. Like, I have no clue what that means. While the United States will get nothing back, why didn't sleepy Joe Biden demand equalization? And that this war is far more important to Europe than it is to us. We have a big, beautiful ocean as separation. Yeah, because that means a lot when it comes to missiles, rockets, and especially nukes. I'm sorry, but as technology improves, like, this is silly. There's also a separation between the United States and China. So why does Trump care about China so much? Shouldn't it be Asia's problem? Like, very weird way to look at international relations, but okay. On top of this, Zelensky, with two eyes for some reason, Zelensky admits that half of the money we sent him is missing. It's not missing. It went into the U.S. He did not say it went missing, okay? He said that it did not go to Ukraine. There's a difference between what Trump is saying and what Zelensky is saying. Trump is saying we sent a lot of money to Ukraine and half of it went missing in Ukraine. What Zelensky actually said is the amount of aid was this, but only half of it uh, ended up in Ukraine. The rest of it was spent in the US. I really have no clue on what. And I can already tell you that it was spent mostly on replenishing the US stock of weaponry. That's the truth. It didn't go missing. The money did not go missing in Ukraine, okay? That is not what was being said. Like, Zelensky did not admit to any money missing in Ukraine, okay? That is not happening. He refuses to have elections. He does not, he isn't refusing to have elections. The Ukrainian constitution very plainly states that no elections can take place during martial law during a war. It is as simple as that. There's no feasible way that an election could take place in a situation like this where millions upon millions of people are internally displaced and externally displaced. Okay, there's just no way, especially considering how law regarding addresses work in Ukraine and many other things. Not to even mention that if in Ukraine people would go to the polls, they would just simply become primary targets for Russia to bomb those sites. It's like this Russia talking point about Zelensky being an illegitimate president because his term ran out in 2024 is so stupid. And oh, what do you mean by Lucy Burns TV, Vladimir? That's what I like to know. I mean, you did smile and giggle a little bit, so my mission accomplished. Job was done. I obviously not meant you, but rather Muppet show that's happening right now. Oh, yeah. It's silly. Like, I love how Zelensky can say, yeah, we only got half the money and the rest went into the US. And Donald Trump will say, see, he admits it. Half the money went missing in Ukraine. Like, the election thing. God, I could talk endlessly about the election thing, and it's so simple as well. I always told myself, and on stream for that matter, that only people that are not very smart will believe the Russian lie that Zelensky is an illegitimate president because he just refuses elections. And now here we are, and the President of the United States is repeating those same things. So, like a Russian mouthpiece, quite literally. Like, I always thought that this line of propaganda was just too stupid for anybody to believe. A long time ago, when it was first reported on the Polish television that no election would be held during wartime, that it's just not feasible, my first reaction was to think, well, yeah, duh. Of course, you're not gonna just have elections during wartime. And I hate this argument that people often say, well, yeah, like the United States had elections during wartime or some other country. I don't even know. But the circumstances were completely different, okay? All the cities in those countries were not actively bombed when those elections were held. And the displacement of citizenry was not nearly to the same extent. So let's not compare mindlessly those situations. Because it becomes absurd. You can take any fact and turn it into absurdity. You can take any simple fact of the matter situation and turn it into a farcical lie. And we have two on the display here. Half of the money missing, a thing that simply is a fact that part of the money goes to Ukraine and part of the money just is like part of the money. Okay. Uh, okay. But yes, just you can, and the election thing, okay? Just and here it continues. I mean, Dylan Hazza TV is doing well compared to what's been previously. Also, isn't it obvious that the best narcissist of all time ain't going to admit that he's wrong? Yes. You're right, military was deployed to the Middle East. The war wasn't happening in the US. Right, yeah? It's like, it's ridiculous. He refuses to have elections. It's very low in Ukrainian polls. 57% on trust, okay? The newest poll, which was made after this statement, says that Zelensky right now is at about 57% approval rating. That's more than Trump has, okay? Maybe that's why Trump is so salty, because President Zelensky is more popular among his people than Trump is. I mean, that must sting, okay? Jesus. Jesus Christ. So very low in Ukrainian polls. Like I can bring up the thing again, okay? I can bring up the graphic again. 80, 37 here, 90, 77, 64, 59, 59, 52. Trust, right? And it went up to 57 now. And there's a chance that due to Trump's rhetoric, it will go up even more from 57. It might go up even more. Very low. And the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. Yes, the only thing that he was good at was securing money for the defense of his country, which is actually the only thing that he should be concentrating on right now, okay? The only thing that he was good at was his job. What a thing to say. How dare he be securing funds for Ukraine to defend itself during an invasion? What a shitty president. Yeah, Naked Gun. I like Naked Gun. Like, come on. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he is not going to have a country left. That sounds like a threat, quite frankly. That is a horrifying statement from the US, which is Ukraine's main backer when it comes to military aid still right now. That is a horrifying statement. Like, if you don't watch out, we might just let Russia take over Ukraine. That is how this reads to me. A dictator. like, I'm sorry, projection much, Mr. Trump. I don't think Trump even understands what a dictator is supposed to mean. Well, then again, he wants to be one, so maybe he does understand. The election thing has been explained so many times. You can try to state simple facts about the Ukrainian constitution, how it clearly states that no election can be held during wartime and martial law. But people won't listen. People will listen to simple bullet points like no election dictator, and that's it. Won't care. There's no simple way to logistically organize an election when millions of people are displaced, refugees, displaced internally. Who cares? Just make them vote. Or maybe just don't vote. Don't count the votes of millions upon millions of people. Who cares? Like, this is such a crazy attitude that I fail to understand it, because it's not just Trump that sort of expresses this attitude. I've seen quite a few so-called left-leaning people on the West actually eat this argument up as well. They would debate in public debates how Ukraine should have an election no matter what. It's just, I'm surprised. I'm not really surprised that Donald Trump would embrace this, but I'm really surprised how much some left-leaning circles, supposedly left-leaning circles, embrace the Russian narrative about Ukrainian elections. In the meantime, we are successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia, because Russia is the real victim of this war. We're successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia, which, by the way, I would like to calmly remind you that Ukraine has not been invited to those talks about peace. Ukraine's future is being actively decided, discussed without Ukraine. Think about that. Russia, as the aggressor, as the only party at the end of the day responsible for this invasion. It's not the fault of Biden. It's not the fault of NATO. It's not the fault of Ukraine especially. It's Russia. Russia invaded. Russia just decided to invade. Russia has decided to broaden the scope of the ongoing conflict that started in 2014 and turn it into a full-blown, full-scale invasion in 2022. There's just no, it's ridiculous. And now we're in the worst possible timeline. We're in the worst possible scenario in which Ukraine is being simply excluded from the discussion about its own fate. Ukraine is almost treated as the aggressor in this war, as the perpetrator of this war. I cannot stress this enough. Zelensky talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war. And now Ukraine is being discussed without Ukraine, with Russia. And also, Trump has attempted to actively punish Ukraine for being invaded by trying to force a very bad deal on Ukraine. 50% of all of its natural resources. It's crazy. It's crazy just how imperialistic the attitude of the United States is towards Ukraine. Like, I've said it before, I'll say it now. Ukraine is simply stuck between the Russian Empire and, as it turns out, the United States of America Empire. It's the worst scenarios are materializing before our eyes. Negotiation an end to the war with Russia, something all admit only Trump and the Trump administration can do. Again, talking about himself in the third person. Biden never tried. Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train. This is another Russian propaganda line, by the way, that Zelensky doesn't really want to win the war. Zelensky isn't gathering funds to arm the military. He isn't trying to keep the country afloat and push the Russian military out. No, he's trying to fill his pockets and keep the war as long as possible going. Another Russian propaganda line. The gravy train. I love Ukraine. That is the biggest lie of this whole post. That is simply the biggest lie of this whole post. I love Ukraine. You don't give a crap about Ukraine. In fact, you despise Ukraine from what I'm seeing and hearing from you. But Zelensky, with double I again, why, as I have no clue as to like why choose this spelling, has done a terrible job. Yeah, a terrible job. Because he has not rolled over for Russia. He should have not asked for any funding. He should have asked for no aid. He simply should have given up. He should have given Russia territory. He should have demilitarized Ukraine. He should have chose neutrality. He should have said we'll never join NATO. In fact, he should have slapped the European Union in the face and said we're never going to join the European Union and we will simply meekly join the Russian sphere of influence. Like that is, I guess, what would have been a good job by Zelensky in Trump's eyes, because he has done a terrible job. His country is shattered, and millions have unnecessarily died, and so it continues. Millions have died. I would like to see where this number has, like, where did he even take this number? I don't think you will arrive at millions even if you combine the casualties of Russia and Ukraine together. You will not arrive at millions. I don't know what Trump is thinking. I have no clue where he took those numbers from, but simply speaking, it's ridiculous. So this is the thing that we are starting this. This is our little intro into what I want to talk about. It has taken us a lot because there's just a lot here. Like, you have to basically discuss every single sentence because, as somebody has said in a very disliked movie, everything you just said is wrong. Everything that you have just said is wrong. And it just needed to be explained why, okay? All of this is the most ridiculous post in a while. And of course, it has created discourse, it has created a lot of backlash, it has been circling in the media, and we're going to go through it and we're going to discuss it. But first, I'm gonna go to the toilet, so write in the chat in the meantime what you think. I'm probably going to go to the toilet right now, and if I stand up now, the doggy that is here with me, he is sleeping next to me, he's probably get up and follow me, so I'll be right back. If you like what you're seeing on this stream, if you think I'm a semi-competent person, then join this page and consider, donating or subscribing or just writing something nice. All right, let's go. have returned. Okay, now that we went through this, sorry, he's very attention seeking. Okay, okay. All right, we went through this. It took us a while. And now we can continue with the news. Can you hear the panting in the pantry? Can anybody hear? Can anybody hear? Can anybody hear here? All right, let's just you lie down. Let's take a deep breath and continue this. Okay? All right. So, as I've said, this was the intro, the little intro into what we're talking about. And of course, Zelensky has made a response. Trump has made a response to that response. This is the response to the response. And this has created its own big discussion. I'm gonna show you the headlines, okay? Where is it? And Trump lives in a bubble of Russian disinformation, says Zelensky, because he says that, of course, he debunked all the claims, 4% of approval, not true. Actually, I'm gonna walk you through Zelensky's response to all of this. But long story short, he said that Trump lives in a bubble of Russian disinformation. And as much as I can agree that he is in that bubble, I don't think that Trump is just this innocent little puppy that is in Russian misinformation bubble. And if he was just better informed, it all would be no. He's cynically choosing to be in this bubble. He is very, very consciously choosing this direction for the United States. He's choosing to embrace this bubble. He's not just trapped in that bubble. That if only someone could pop it and feed him the correct information, all would be good. No, he embraces the Russian narrative very consciously and deliberately. I'm not sure if that is what Zelensky says or even can say, considering just how much dependent Ukraine is on the aid from the US. But the truth is that Trump is not just a victim of misinformation or disinformation. Trump is embracing the disinformation deliberately. And in response to being told that he lives in a Russian disinformation bubble, Trump himself said, because there's a quote from him talking about this whole 4% approval crap, and he says it himself, it's not a Russian thing, it's me, it's all me, which we all know is a lie. Of course, it's not just a Trump thing. We all know that he took those talking points from Russia, okay? It's not his original thought. And there are not many countries that think that Zelensky is an illegitimate president. I would like those countries to be named. Well, okay, maybe North Korea, maybe Iran, maybe to some extent China. Maybe I could agree that those countries agree with Trump that Zelensky is an illegitimate president and that has 4% approval rating. But that is not really a thing that is that's not really a thing in the European Union. In the European Union, maybe Slovakia and Hungary, because those countries are just plain pro-Russia. But in general, most countries are at a consensus that most countries understand that there's such thing as law, there's such thing as a constitution, and that if a constitution says that elections will not be held during a war, then no election will be held during a war. Most countries understand this as a simple fact. And that it does not make Zelensky a dictator. But we have something here. Here you go. Zelensky pushes back on Trump with facts, not rhetoric. So we can watch this. Hey, Trump was the best friend of Epstein. So let's not make any mistakes about his innocence. He's the guy that grabs them by the yeah, exactly. Let's not even pretend that he's just some innocent schmuck that is just misinformed, and if only someone would reach him with the correct information, then he'd probably turn it all around and be like, yeah, I see the light now. Then again, he doesn't understand what half the institutions in his own country do, so it's pretty natural that he, of course, would not be familiar with the Ukrainian constitution. Okay, let's just listen. Let's just hear from Zelensky himself. Let him defend. We're gonna let him defend himself. Przestań! Sorry, my dog had a relapse and started biting on something, so I had to stop him. I had to step in and stop him. He stopped, okay? Crisis averted. For now. Okay, let's listen from Zelensky himself. I'm gonna have to edit this out. And by edit this out, I mean I'm gonna have to make timestamps and make fake Kyle Parker edit this out. That's basically the same, right? It is basically the same thing. We're talking about weapons. This is a package of weapons. 302 billion in total. My dog is acting up now, I'm sorry. It might take me a little breaks to calm him down. So he just growled. He saw the screen and he growled. He once barked at himself in the mirror as well. Chodź. Przestań. Przestań. Can you even hear him? Oh my god! Why did he bark at my computer? Oh my god. Przestań. Stop. Shut. Przestań. I don't know. My dog thinks he is Zelensky. I should write this as a title of a video. My dog thinks he is Zelensky. And begged the United States for money to go to a war. Przestań. Chodź. Łobuzie ty. Chodź. Siad. Leżeć. Siad. Siad. Połóż się. Połóż się. Siad. Okay. Don't mind the weird noises. That's how I talk to him. That's how I talk to my dog. Don't mind. Don't mind, as they say in Japanese. All right, we can go back to the politics and to the grim atmosphere of the world, okay? We can go back now to the grim realities of our... Oh, no, wait, no, never mind. My dog's back. Never mind. I don't get to cover the news. Sticky my attention. My God. I don't get to do anything tonight, do I? Nie, 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 nie. O, wyjdź, nie. Stop. Okay. He tried to bite off my headphones cable, okay? That's not acceptable behavior, I don't think. What do you... Okay, now we can go back to the news, okay? Oh my God. Now we can go back, finally. He wants to be a streamer. I think so. Maybe he get more viewers than me. I think my dog, unironically, will get more viewers than me. More subs and viewers. Like, I should just set up a camera, put it in his room, where he just jumps around and eats everything and butchers the furniture. And I'm willing to bet he will get more views than me. Live viewers. Okay? He's back. Okay. Maybe I should just give him a treat. He's licking the bottle, the Coke bottle. Okay, he lied down. But I'm afraid. I'm very afraid because he lied down in a way that he is partially under my chair, and my chair is falling apart. So I'm afraid that at any moment my chair could fall apart and I would fall straight on him and kill him or something. You know, he's biting my chair. He's trying to just destroy it to the end. Stop. This chair is falling apart already. And he's biting at the leg. Przestań. Fuj. Przestań. Okay, he stopped, so I'm gonna give him a treat. Okay, I'm gonna try to make him not bite the thing. Oh my goodness. Was the munching audible? I actually wonder if which parts are audible and which part aren't. Is my noise gate absolute, or did you just hear the crunching of the thing? No more for now. I was trying to lick my Maryland glass. Yeah. Yeah. Stop. Now he's trying to bite my desk. Oh my god. He's not gonna let me do anything, will he? It's over. It's over. Politics are over. Trying to stop the dog from destroying this room stream, I guess. It's on. It's on now. I'm gonna ask the US for money to go to war with my dog. Przestań! Stop! Przestań! Nie! Stop! Stop! Nie! I'm gonna mute. Oh my god, unironically. Oh my god. Shut. Ah. Oh my god. Hopefully Fido doesn't chew the scarf I made. No, he has not chewed on that. He would tear it to shreds, by the way. Just saying. He would tear it to shreds. But no, he has not found it yet. Now he's trying to shred the blanket that I'm wearing. He's pulling on my blanket. He's playing tug of war with me as we speak. With my blanket. That's the stream now. At least for the past few streams, he was afraid to get into this room. Now he found the courage, and here we are. I was actually stupidly trying to encourage him to get into this room. I was like, come here, come here, come here. And now he's here, and I have to deal with the consequence of my own decisions, okay? I gave him the courage. I gave him the encouragement to come into this room. Stop! Przestań! 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 Stop! Stój! Fido! Fido! Stop! Stop! You stupid mutt. Stop it! Przestań. I don't even know. What language do I use with this dog? Stop! Przestań. Zatrzymaj się. Fido! Okay. Oh my god, he lied down. He lied down. Okay, he lied down. I can now do the stream, okay? If you appreciate my pain or whatever, then this is like a nice opportunity for me to say, join this page. Please understand my pain. I'm in pain. And donate or subscribe. If you subscribe, you're donating to you're donating for this dog's feed. He's trying to bite on electric cables now. Przestań. Przestań. Nie. Przestań. 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 Do you have a dog toy you could bring him? Oh yeah, I do. Hold on. One moment. Maybe okay. That's true. Yeah, I'll take a toy. It'll make the stream experience very specific, but yeah, I'll have a toy. Oh my god, let's hope this works. Because that's the toy, okay? That's the toy. Okay, play with the toy. Please play with the toy. Play with the toy, you mother quacker. It's working. He is playing with the toy, in fact. Oh my god. It worked, okay. I have a special paste that is food-like, and I used it. I smeared the toy with the paste, and hopefully he'll be... Yeah, but we'll be hearing squeaking. It's a squeaky toy, so yeah, we'll be hearing squeaking. We might be hearing some squeaking. Yeah. Oh god. Yeah, you're gonna play with the toy? Yeah? 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 Oh my god, he got bored with the toy, I think. Come on. What are you doing now? He's licking the floor. Because he can feel the paste on the floor. Oh my gosh. Okay, now I think we can go back to the stream, okay? You got bored with the toy, just saying. Toy! Yes. Oh my god. God have mercy on my soul. He left the room. Okay, I think he took the toy with him. Yeah. Yeah, he took the toy and he left the room. And now he's playing with it, I think. I can hear the squeaks. Alright. Now we can continue. I'm sorry for the slight delay. It's been like, you know. He's in the next... No, he's fine being in a different room in the the house. He's fine being in a different room in a house. Oh, gosh. Because I did have to leave him in the room sometimes, in his room, to stream here. Okay, now we can discuss Zelensky, okay? What time is it? We're talking about weapons. This is a package of weapons. 320 billion in total. I'm gonna make it a bit. He's back. He's back. Maybe I should just lock the door to this room. I'm just gonna lock the room. But I feel bad. I feel like a bad person. Okay, for locking the doggy away. I feel like a morally evil person if I lock the door and not let him in here. Like I might commit some sin. Okay, let's 300 billion in total, and the United
Сполучені Штати окремо всього. Сполучені Штати Америки дали нам на сьогодні біля 60, мені здається, мільярдів.
600.
Те, що ми отримали зброєю, і ми отримали ще плюс.
That's very bad. Okay, I'm not gonna use these videos because the subtitles are bad. I have an article for this. I thought I could depend on this, but 600 billion?
Сьогодні,
No,
на сьогодні біля 60, мені здається.
it's 60. Oh, he lied down. Trump wants more than the minerals. Okay. Okay, we're gonna just jump into it. Europe ahead of US in aid for Ukraine, says Research Institute. Because that is the claim. The claim, Trump makes a claim that one, Ukraine has taken from the US $320 billion, okay? Second claim is that the US has spent a lot more than Europe on US aid. So let's see this article, fact check it, okay? Europe ahead of US in aid for Ukraine, says Research Institute. Europe has clearly overtaken the US in providing aid to Ukraine, although total aid budgets for the country remain low, according to new research. The Kiel Institute's Ukraine Support Tracker, UST, also found that military aid for Ukraine is increasingly being sourced from industry as opposed to it coming from existing arsenals and surplus military stock. The figures from the UST come as the third anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine approaches, and the controversy over just who has provided the most continues. Donald Trump, the US president, has irked European governments by making repeated claims that the American total for aid spending surpasses that of Europe. Addressing the press at the White House on February 18, for example, the president said, "I think Europe has given 100 billion and we've given, let's say, 300 plus billion." So it is mirrored in his tweet where he says that the United States has given Ukraine $320 billion for Ukraine to go to war. European critics of Trump argue that his claim the US outspends Europe, which they regard as questionable, emboldens him to interact with Russia in a peace process alone, while sidelining without justification European leaders. Which is very interesting. He, on the one hand, says that this war is more important to Europe, that Europe has more interest in this war than the US, that there's a beautiful ocean that separates the US from Europe and Russia and Ukraine, but at the same time sidelines Europe from negotiation, and in fact sidelines Ukraine from negotiation. Oh, how interesting. How very, very interesting. Figures for 2022-2024 from the UST published this month appear to support this criticism, although the US remains the biggest single donor country to Ukraine in purely financial terms. Europe as a whole has clearly overtaken the US in terms of Ukraine aid. It wrote in its report, in total, Europe has allocated 70 billion euro in financial and humanitarian aid, as well as 62 billion in military aid. This compares to 64 billion in military aid from the US, as well as 50 billion in financial and humanitarian allocation. So, yes, Europe has clearly surpassed the aid from the United States. It added that the drop in US funding for Ukraine began in mid-2023, and with Trump now encamped in the Oval Office, military aid is expected to stall again. Despite the billions of euros flowing to Ukraine, the UST stresses that the amounts are just a tiny fractions of donor countries' GDP. And this is where a discussion begins about how Trump cries about Zelensky conning Biden into huge amounts of money, into the US being duped into spending so much. And the reality is this. I'm just gonna read you the quote and you can decide just how what horrible amounts of money Ukraine has swindled the US on. When looking at the government budgets in most European donor countries, Ukraine aid over the last 3 years looks more like a minor political pet project rather than a major fiscal effort. Christopher Trebeshk, head of the UST, said in the report. Germany, the UK, and the US, the report added, mobilized less than 0.2% of their GDP per year to support Ukraine. I think this bears repeating. Germany, the UK, and the US mobilized less than 0.2% of their GDP per year to support Ukraine. The UST also wrote that one of the most notable developments in military aid over the past 3 years is a gradual shift from relying on donors' stockpiles to producing newly produced weapons and equipment. Europe has still a lot to do when it comes to this, by the way, especially when it comes to streamlining production. Two-thirds of military aid is now sourced direct from industry as European countries improve weapons and weapons manufacturing and procurement procedures and work on enhancing international cooperation. Well, hopefully, because otherwise we're screwed. We're all screwed if Europe does not step up right now, considering the course that the United States under Trump is taking, blaming Ukraine for the war, calling Zelensky a dictator, saying that he has swindled the United States for $320 billion, saying that he took the money to go to war, that Russia wants peace, Ukraine does not want peace, and so on and so forth. Russia's war against Ukraine has become a war of procurement and weapons production, said Trebeshk. It is thus crucial to build up industrial capacity for defense production, especially in Europe. The best way to do so is by pan-European cooperation. And I agree. It is time to decrease. It's time for the individual nation states in the European Union to stop trying to be smart, to stop trying to put their little tweaks on their weapons production and to streamline. All European countries should have the same standard for training, military equipment, shells, munitions, what have you. Okay, it should all be perfectly streamlined within the European Union. It should be mutually interchangeable. I have no clue. I don't know. There's been a strong push. Lucy, what do you think will happen in the snap elections in Germany in a couple of days? Do you think the AfD will win big? I just don't know. There's been a big push from the United States to promote AfD. There's been a push from Elon Musk. There's been, frankly, a push from J.D. Vance and a few other prominent U.S. politicians. So it's hard for me to say. I hope not. I certainly hope not. But if the AfD, I've been joking about it with people. I've been joking about it on stream, and I've been joking about it with people in private, that if the AfD wins, who knows? Maybe we'll see a special military operation, a 3-day special military operation in Poland for Germany to regain its German territory. Who knows what will happen? After all, Eastern Germany is actually Central Germany. Don't forget. Don't forget about it. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous how much of a bold-faced liar Trump can be. And it reminds me of a story. Okay, I got reminded. My mom reminded me of a story. She said that um, she told me that Trump is basically a Nicodem Disma, and I guess I have to explain it to you. Okay, I'm gonna introduce you to some Polish fiction um, that has predicted the United States. Okay, Nicodem Disma. It's like a funny story about politics. Okay, it's not available in any language other than Polish, I see. I'm gonna translate it because this story has predicted what happened in the United States, okay? It literally has predicted it. Nikodem Desma is a fictional literary character, a titular uh, protagonist uh, a, of a novel by Tadeusz Dołęga Mostowicz, uh, titled The Career of Nikodem Disma. It was printed in chapters from 1931, and a full book was printed in 1932. There were movies, there were theatrical releases. And we're gonna talk about the story. Okay? Where is the plot summary? Where is the story summary? I don't see. There should be a story summary somewhere. Oh, there we go. Okay. Unemployed Nikodem Disma, a provinciary from the Far East, is in Warsaw, looking for a job. He used to work at the post office in his home city, but he was fired. In Warsaw, he played the mandolin and made some money by playing the mandolin in bars and little pubs, but he did not make much money out of it. He cannot find job as a paid dance partner, and after one of his failed attempts to get a job, he buys cigarettes and stops at a train station near some alley. And he sees a person waiting for a tram, and the boy jumps on the tram, sort of gets his bag, like he drops his bag, it gets open, and a bunch of letters spill on the ground. And one of the letters fall next to Disma. Disma opens it and picks it up and waves at the tram, but the boy doesn't notice it. And in the open letter, Disma finds an invitation from the prime minister for a party because the chancellor of Austria is coming, and there will be a party because of it, and there's an invitation to the party. So he goes to the address on the letter to give the letter back to the to give the letter back, but nobody's there. And then he goes to the party. Long story short, I'm not gonna translate the whole wiki. Long story short, he goes to the party. He starts saying a bunch of nonsense. He starts saying a bunch of aggressive nonsense, and everybody says, "Oh my God, this guy just doesn't care about anything. He's so great. He's a genius, actually. He's a political genius." and basically through nonsensing his way and saying a bunch of uninformed things, he builds a whole political career, and I think he ends up president or something and builds wealth. Okay? And this is basically the character that my mom said Trump is. He says a bunch of aggressive, nonsensical things, and everybody claps and says, "Oh my God, this is genius." Okay? He builds a gigantic political career. The character of Disma has been portrayed in the story uh, so vividly that with time, the surname Disma became a symbol of a rough person that is lacking qualification, and but at the same time a very cunning uh, con man and a person that and a career man. Sounds familiar? And this term has been known in the 30s already, and it has been often used in the publications of the third RP. So yeah. There has to be an English version of this article, right? There is. Okay. Small town man in search for work while working for the streets of Warsaw. He gets the letter. Um, there you go. He goes to that party. At the reception, he befriends a member of parliament and wins the hearts of guests with his attitude. He is introduced to a wealthy landowner by the name of Konicki, a former con artist, who is so impressed by Disma that he offers him a job as a superintendent of his country estate. Oh, there you go. He's offered a series of prestigious appointments. However, he is forced to hide his past from the prying eyes of the advertisers and the general public. His lack of knowledge about things that are expected of him are taken either as his humor or eccentricities. Sounds familiar? Or by his underlings as attempts to test them. Disma's rise in status is not good for his morals, as eventually he commissions the murder of his former boss from the provinces, who might have revealed the truth of Disma's background. Ultimately, he marries Nina and decides to refuse a commendation to become Prime Minister of Poland for fear that his pretenses will be revealed. Like a story about a person that was a nobody, but everybody was so impressed with his attitude that he became a well-known politician. It's, yeah. So there we have it. My dog is calm now. My dog is calm now. My doggy is calm now. The dictator. And there you have it. Zelensky is a dictator. It's all good. It's all done. Half my stream is me calming down the dog, which he's now lying down on the floor. So yes, in Poland, Disma, the surname is the symbol of lack of qualifications and being a con man. Ukrainian Prime Minister apparently says that Europe is more united than ever in its support, which I sure hope so, because it really needs to be right now. Under the current circumstances, Europe needs to be more united than ever, because if it won't, then Ukraine is truly screwed. Europe has been completely sidelined from the conversation about peace, just like Ukraine itself. Ukraine's prime minister has said, blah blah blah, following a discussion with his Polish counterpart, that Europe is more unified than ever. Denis Shmyhal said he had a fruitful talk with Donald Tusk, during which he thanked Poland's prime minister for his support in passing the EU's 16th round of sanctions against Russia. Shmyhal said the conversation had touched on bilateral cooperation, including military logistics, as well as progress in Ukraine's integration with the EU. We appreciate the support of our Polish friends on many issues, Shmyhal was quoted. Poland is now at the helm, more or less, like it has the presidency. Shmyhal was quoted by the Polish press agency as saying, "I am convinced that Europe, like never before, is united in its support of Ukraine." Let's just hope that is the case. Let's just really hope that is the case, because if not, then we might find ourselves in a very bad situation very soon. Just saying. Russia and US agreed to work toward ending Ukraine war in a remarkable diplomatic shift. Remarkable diplomatic shift. Right? A shift in which Ukraine is excluded. I already heard from some Russian sources that Russian people will be able to use international credit cards again. So I guess Ukraine is looking to be punished for being invaded, and it very much looks like that the United States, or rather the Trump administration, is looking to reward Russia for invading. Ultimately, Russia and the US agreed Tuesday to start working toward ending the war in Ukraine and improving their diplomatic and economic ties. This is the key, by the way. The key is that the US will care more about this part, improving their diplomatic and economic ties, and less about finding a just peace for Ukraine. Ukraine is just a stepping stone for Trump to improving diplomatic and economic ties with Russia. Let's not make a mistake here by thinking otherwise. The two countries' top diplomats said after talks that reflected an extraordinary about face in US foreign policy under President Donald Trump, which Zelensky has stated very accurately that basically the US has broken the isolation of the of Russia via these talks. That's the only thing that has been accomplished. Russia's isolation on the international stage has been broken, and now we're seeing the discussions happening without Ukraine. In an interview, so much for no peace talks can be done above Ukraine's. So much for the no negotiations being able to be done above Ukraine. Oh wow, okay, that's cool. As we speak, over half of Ukraine is under bomb threat. Drones, missiles, what have you. Over half of Ukraine is now under drone and missile alert as we talk about peace being agreed upon without the presence of Ukraine. Ukraine has not been invited into the peace talks. But you know why? It still doesn't stop Russia from bombing it daily. He stressed, however, that the talks, which were attended by his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, and other senior Russian and US officials, marked the beginning of a conversation and more work needs to be done. Lavrov echoed Rubio's remarks and told reporters that the conversation was very useful. By the way, Trump has addressed the fact that Ukraine has not been invited into the talks. He said, "Oh, Ukraine is mad that they don't have the seat at the table." Well, you know what? They had that seat at the table for 3 years and they didn't sit at the table. So that's so stupid. It's basically blaming a country that has been invaded for being invaded. It's the most scummy thing that you can do. I assure you that there's not much you can do to be more scummy in a situation like this. When Ukraine is being bombed daily, civilians are being threatened daily, mass graves have been filled with Ukrainian civilians, children have been kidnapped and sent to Russia, and now people like Donald Trump have the gall to say, yeah, actually, it's all Ukraine's fault. Ukraine went to war and scammed the US for money to do it. Brilliant. We not only listened, but also heard each other, he said. Trump's national security advisor, Michael Waltz, and special East envoy Stephen Witkoff joined Rubio at the table, along with Lavrov and Russian President Vladimir Putin's foreign affairs advisor, Yuri Ushakov. No Ukrainian officials were present at the meeting, which came as the beleaguered country is slowly but steadily losing ground against more numerous Russian troops in a grinding war that began nearly 3 years ago. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said his country would not accept any outcome from the talks since Kyiv didn't take part, and he postponed his own trip to the kingdom scheduled for Wednesday. European allies have also expressed concerns that they are being sidelined. Again, the only thing that can cause a shift in this situation is if Europe steps up, if Europe asserts itself on the stage, if Europe gets a grip, streamlines its military aid, and asserts itself as a power to be reckoned with on the international stage. Okay, say to the US, you need us and you should help us against Russia in this. Not try to work with Russia to screw over Ukraine, which is what is happening here right now, quite frankly. Improving Russian-US relations. This is a farce. Ties between Russia and the US have fallen to their lowest level in decades in recent years, a rift that has been widening ever since Russia illegally annexed Crimea from Ukraine in 2014 and only worsened after Moscow's full-scale invasion. The US, along with European nations, imposed a raft of sanctions on Russia in an effort to damage its economy, and embassies in Washington and Moscow have been hit hard by expulsions of large numbers of diplomats, as well as other restrictions. Rubio said Tuesday that ending the war in Ukraine could unlock the door for incredible opportunities that exist to partner with the Russian geopolitically on issues of common interest and frankly economically on issues that hopefully will be good for the world and also improve our relations in the long term. Thank you. We should ignore Ukrainian interest and go back to business as usual as soon as possible. That is the actual translation of what is being said here. Just so you know. Just so you know. His comments were further evidence of the remarkable US reversal on Russia after years in which Trump's predecessor Joe Biden led international efforts to isolate Moscow. Yeah, so basically Zelensky is correct that this isolation is being just broken completely. Tuesday's meeting was meant to pave the way for a summit between Trump and Putin. After the talks ended, Ushakov and Waltz said no date has been set yet for that summit. Ushakov told Russian television that a meeting was unlikely to take place next week, while Waltz said he thought it could be arranged in the coming weeks. Speaking to reporters after the meeting, Lavrov mentioned the same three goals as Rubio and said that Washington and Moscow agreed to appoint representatives to carry out regular consultations on Ukraine, because Ukraine is not uh, it's not really a factor. It's not really a side in this. It's just a thing to be negotiated over, right? It's not an agent in this whole discussion. Ukraine has no say. Ukraine has no sovereignty, I guess, because it's just being played. It's just being ping-ponged between the two empires right now. It's a joke. It's consultations on Ukraine. Ukraine is not being talked to. Ukraine is being talked about. Ukraine is not being negotiated with. Ukraine is being negotiated about. There's a huge difference there. I have reason to believe that the American side has started to better understand our position. Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree. The US has really started to understand the Russian side more, in that the US, much like Russia, wants to be an empire, and they want to milk Ukraine for as much as they can and then throw it under the bus. They don't care. Trump did say Ukraine might be Russian someday, it might not, but we should get our payment now, or else we might feel stupid in the future. So yeah. Vitkov said the meeting was positive, upbeat, constructive. Everybody was there to get to the right outcome. This is a very interesting phrase, because the right outcome for Russia, for example, is definitely not the right outcome for Ukraine. And who exactly was there to advocate for the right outcome for Ukraine? Certainly not the Trump administration, certainly not Russia. So what exactly is the right outcome for everybody? I have no clue. The meeting marked the most extensive contact between the two countries since Moscow's February 24, 2022 invasion. Lavrov and then US Secretary of State Antony Blinken talked briefly on the sidelines of a G20 meeting in India nearly 2 years ago, but tensions remained high. Concerns from allies, they are being sidelined, and by allies we mean primarily Europe. Europe is being primarily sidelined. The recent US diplomatic blitz on the war has sent Ukraine and key allies scrambling to ensure a seat at the table amid concerns that Washington and Moscow could press ahead with a deal that won't be favorable to them. Yeah, of course. If they will be able to, they will. Kyiv's absence at Tuesday talks rankled many Ukrainians, and France called an emergency meeting of European Union countries and the UK on Monday to discuss the war. Kyiv's participation in such talks was a bedrock of US policy under Biden, which is probably why the opposite is true under Trump. Because Trump's policy is basically whatever Biden did, I will do the opposite. Okay? Maybe I'll watch. I was just being sent something. Maybe we'll watch it after reading this. U.S. State Department spokeswoman Tammy Bruce said the talks were aimed at determining how serious the Russians are about achieving peace and whether detailed negotiations can start. Rubio said Tuesday that there would be engagement and consultation with Ukraine, with our partners in Europe and others, but ultimately the Russian side will be indispensable to this effort. Rubio also said ending the conflict would require concessions from all sides, and that Washington is not going to predetermine what those concessions would be. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said last week that NATO membership for Ukraine was unrealistic and suggested Kyiv should abandon hopes of winning all its territory from Russia. We have already discussed this. Waltz said the practical reality is that there is going to be some discussion of territory. There is going to be a discussion of security guarantees. And if what I'm seeing right now is an indicator of things to come, then they are going to primarily discuss the security guarantees for the Russian Federation. Okay, that is going to be the primary concern in these talks. Oh, but Russia has the right to feel safe from NATO, right? What about Russia's security concerns? It was basically forced to invade. Basically, it was just the warmongering Ukraine going to war with Russia who was innocent in all this, of course. There you go. Rubio said Tuesday that there will be engagement and consultation with Ukraine, with our partners in Europe and others, but ultimately the Russian side will be indispensable to this effort. Rubio also said ending the conflict would require concessions from all sides, and that Washington is not going to predetermine what those concessions would be. Translation: we're going to force Ukraine to give up land, and we're not really going to force Russia to concede anything. Because what could Russia concede? U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said last week that NATO membership for Ukraine was unrealistic. There we go. Waltz said that practical reality is that there is going to be blah, blah, blah. French President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday said he spoke by phone to Trump and Zelensky following Monday's European meeting. Why do they keep writing Zelensky with the two Y's? We seek a strong and lasting peace in Ukraine, Macron wrote on social media platform X. To achieve this, Russia must end its aggression, and this must be accompanied by strong and credible security guarantees for the Ukrainians, he said, and vowed to work on this together with all European Americans and Ukrainians. Well, Saudi Arabia's role. War continues. The meeting at the Diriyah Palace in the Saudi capital of Riyadh also highlighted de facto leader Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's efforts to be a major diplomatic player, burnishing a reputation severely tarnished by the 2018 killing of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Saudi state media described the talks as happening at the prince's direction, like the neighboring United Arab Emirates. The prince has maintained close relations to Russia throughout its war on Ukraine, both through the OPEC plus oil cartel and diplomatically as well. Saudi Arabia has also helped in prisoner negotiations and hosted Zelensky for an Arab League summit in 2023. But Zelensky postponed his own trip to Saudi Arabia, suggesting that he wanted to avoid his visit being linked to the talks since Ukrainian officials weren't invited. His visit was rescheduled for March 10th, and the war continues. Meanwhile, Russia continued to pummel Ukraine with drones, according to Kyiv's military. Yeah, there is a drone alarm right now. There's a drone alarm right now. Okay. It's Jesus Christ. Important. Hold on, I have to. The chat is just dying. I want to see the chat. So yeah, there is yeah, it is being pummeled by drones. Yeah, indeed, indeed, Russia is being pummeled by drones. Oh, not Russia, Ukraine. Well, then again, maybe it's Russia. Russia's the victim here after all. Russia's the real victim in all this. Don't forget. Important factor about Hegseth is he's full-on Christian dominionist. Who are they? Well, when Tucker Carlson says that Ukraine is persecuting Christians, that's their talk. Oh God. Of course. Of course, it's Russia's absolutely not persecuting Christians. Absolutely not. One Russian drone struck a residential building in Dolinska in the Kirovohrad region, wounding a mother and her 2 children and prompting an evacuation of 38 apartments. The regional administration reported 4 more residential buildings were damaged by drone debris in the Chersky region of Ukraine, according to local officials. Debris. All right. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it for now. I think we've covered. Oh yeah, I've left this one. I think I've left this for last because I have to talk about this, okay? Where's my CNN? There we go. I'm going to do this as the last thing on stream. In a sense, the Russian and Russian speaking people are one of the real victims if you want to frame it that way. I mean, yeah. So Trump read this list in which he said, oh, so many people that are 130, 100, 300-year-old people are getting benefits. This is a ridiculous list. Corruption. Money is being sent to people that are supposedly 300 years old. And we're gonna read a quick debunk of this, okay? President Donald Trump, echoing a false claim that from Elon Musk, incorrectly stated Wednesday that the Social Security Administration, and Elon Musk is supposed to be the guy in charge of the organization that is supposed to be on top of this, on top of the corruption, on top of what's actually going on. But no, instead he just spreads misinformation through his Dodge thing. Perfect. It's supposed to be anti-misinformation, but instead he spreads it. Incorrectly stated Wednesday that the Social Security Administration is making payments to millions of dead people, including one person who is older than the United States itself, and more than 1,000 people between the ages of 220 and 229. 3.47 million people are on Social Security from age of 120 years old to 129 years old, Trump said. 3.9 million are on Social Security from 130 years old to 139 years old. His claim appeared to be based on the so-called Numident list, which is a limited collection of personal data, according to Kathleen Roming, who used to work at the SSA, first as a retirement policy analyst and more recently as a senior advisor in the Office of the Commissioner. The list includes names, social security numbers, and a person's birth and death dates, but the Numident list does not reflect the death dates for 18.9 million people who were born in 1920 or earlier. This is key. That's a known problem, which the Social Security Inspector General in a 2023 report has already recommended the agency correct. That same report, however, also noted that almost none of the 18.9 million number holders currently receive SSA payments. So basically, Trump is taking this number, Trump is taking this data, this mistake that is already known and has been recommended to be corrected. No, none of the money goes to those people, but Trump takes it to spread a falsehood that millions upon millions, probably he will say, of dollars go to Social Security benefits for people that are dead, which is not true. It's a simple matter of certain data not being noted down correctly. Namely, the dates of death of people who were born in 1920 and before. That's it. It's a simple mistake that should be corrected. But no money is being wasted on. Nobody thinks that those people are still alive. Nobody is sending them money. Nobody thinks that there's a lot of people who are 300 years plus, okay, old, and that they should be sent Social Security. Nobody believes that. Okay. Thank you. I've said that. I've said my piece, and now I can peace out. Okay? Now I can peace out and take care of the puppy because he's been crazy. Thank you for this beautiful stream. Thank you for all the love. Open the widget. And I guess I'm going to, I don't know, send you to someone. I'm going to send you to Jack. Food shops. I'm going to send you to food shops. Riverboat Jack is not live. I don't see Riverboat Jack live. Food shops, The Letter Hack, Mro Live, The Black TV. The Two Guys Talking History, Vegcom, Riverboat Jack. Oh yeah, there is Riverboat Jack. Okay, let's go to Riverboat Jack. As an Eastern European, why do you hate retired vampires? As I'm a hateful person, that's why. Okay, let's go. Maybe someday this will translate to some growth for me. Maybe someday. Someday. Okay, I'm gonna finish stream. Bye-bye. Bye-bye-bye-bye. Bye-bye. Someday.